Welcome to the Agency Insider Show, where we dive deep into the world of digital marketing and SEO. I'm your host, Navneet Kaushal, and today we have a very special guest joining us, Victor Ban, Principal Marketing Manager for SEO at HubSpot. Victor has an impressive background in the industry, having worked with Fortune 500 companies and being interviewed by major publications like Reuters and Mashable. He's known for his innovative approach to SEO and his commitment to creating a kinder, gentler internet. Victor, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Victor, you had quite an interesting journey in the world of SEO. Can you take us through your career path from your early days to your current role at HubSpot?
Yeah, sure. I'm Taiwanese American, and I grew up in Taiwan in an international school. And so hence you might notice I don't really have an accent. And after I graduated from college in Boston, I went to work at a startup by the name of WordStream. Some of the internet marketing folks might know, because back in the day, that was a site that ranked for a lot of internet marketing terms.
Daddy, right?
Right, I remember there were about like 32 people in the office when I went in. And I went in as an unpaid intern, and 2 weeks in, they're like, we're going to hire you. So I got to learn a lot from a mentor who was the CTO of the company at the time, Larry Kim. And we had really aggressive goals. Like we had to grow double digits month over month because you're in a startup. And so anything was fair game. And back then, SEO back then was a lot of more spammy things, right? Google Plus was just coming out, and we're like, okay, are these signals? Can we game these signals? We didn't really think about like whether or not it was right or wrong. We were just trying to rank better. And so I was there for 2 years. I tested a lot of things, learned a lot of things. We ranked for a lot of keywords. Then I worked at Catalyst Search Marketing, that was then rebranded to Catalyst Digital. They're part of Group M, which is also a part of WPP PLC, one of the largest media buying agencies in the world that's publicly traded, based in the UK. And that was where I got to work with Fortune 500 companies that you mentioned in the intro. My main clients were in oral care. So in the US or internationally, that would be your Crest properties. So Crest toothpaste, Oral-B electric toothbrushes, and my favorite was actually denture cream, Fixodent. And that's my favorite because it's different. Like
Okay.
the usage data there, you're like, oh, these people are coming from Internet Explorer, or like, oh, these people don't like modern web design. They like their website the way they are. And it was really funny because that was one of these sub-sites that actually had a forum where their customers were going in and sharing with other customers, like life without, life with dentures, basically. And it was kind of cute, right? But of course, once you rebrand or you update things, all these older generation folks, I don't know if you ever played like tech support for your parents or your grandparents. They're always calling you like, why isn't this working anymore? We lost a lot of those people when we did a whole redesign. But that's another thing altogether. And that after a stint of doing like a major migration where Crest properties had like Crest 3D Health, Crest Complete, Crest Pro Health, we actually merged all those sites into one site. We saw a huge traffic boost when we did that consolidation. And it was funny because I remember there were like 5 different articles on gingivitis for all these different sub-brands, and we had consolidated into one. We had started building out topic clusters of like content in a library that made a lot more sense, that had mentions of related products to what Crest offers. And we also had like PDF printable versions for these different dental offices. Again, thinking about like who your audience is and how to make that content helpful. So that was like a great experience, and traffic was up. Everyone's really happy, but HubSpot had an opportunity. I was reached out on someone who then became my manager, Matthew Barbie, and he was saying like, hey, here's HubSpot. HubSpot's changed a lot. Back then, it was only selling a single piece of marketing software. And there's this almost like a startup inside of HubSpot that was doing a sales or CRM software. And
Yeah.
we'd like you to join the team and rank for CRM keywords. And for the next
Okay.
8 years, I've been at HubSpot doing a lot of interesting things.
Yes. I mean, I remember when we were doing optimization, HubSpot would pop up everywhere, and now I know the reason why.
I wouldn't say so that it's all me. I would definitely say everything takes a team. And when
Right.
you have a strong brand, it makes life a lot easier than if you were a startup that had to figure out how to get a lot of backlinks, how to really have a catered, like an audience that you could email and that would stay engaged, and having a social presence that, again, you're starting from scratch. You have to build a lot of those things up.
So now, how big is the SEO team at HubSpot?
That's a great question. There are a lot of growth marketers in HubSpot right now that have an SEO skill set. So that's I would say it's, as the number of people that have like an SEO background, I'd say it's probably over 2 dozen. And that's because we also have international teams where we don't think it's right for like someone like me who only speaks Mandarin and English to optimize content from like different locales where there's cultural implications that, I would definitely miss than someone else who was more familiar with those markets. Or like just think about Spanish, like the way
Yeah.
our sites are set up. It's not we're targeted for just Spain. There's also like Mexican Spanish, which is very different from like uh you know European Spanish, and then Southern Americans, like South American Spanish. And those are nuances that I know they exist, but I wouldn't be able to do that justice. And yeah, therefore it's very important to have people that speak and understand that language.
Okay. Now, uh, now having worked with both agencies and in-house teams, what do you see as the main difference and challenges in these environments when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, I think with agencies, you're limited to your statement of work or SOW. Um, and you want to please your client, right? Like, and your client, depending on the size of your client, has limited resources or is stuck to a cadence, maybe like maybe a yearly planning cycle. Or that was the case with Procter and Gamble. Like May was kind of when we knew what our budgets would be, whether or not the content briefs we were pitching would go through, or all these other things. And if your client just doesn't have that, brand manager doesn't have that budget, then nothing's going to be moving. And if they do, and they're happy with that relationship you've kind of raised with them, then they can implement. Whereas an in-house, at least at HubSpot, it's about prioritization, right? Like, hey, what is the ROI of this thing that you forecast can actually do? And then based off of all these other priorities, let's figure out what we should be doing. And how much of this requires cross-team collaboration versus what are things you can jumpstart to do today and validate with something what we call like a MVP, minimal viable product or experience, where maybe it was back then we're like, hey, can we consistently rank better for featured snippet? What does that process look like? Can we have a win rate higher than average where it's not just a coin flip? And
Right.
only then, when you can prove that, yes, we can consistently do that, what are the elements of that, do we then invest and say like, hey, let's roll this out across the HubSpot blog, for example. So I guess that's like the big difference, right? With in-house, you can have these little tests to roll up bigger things and to pitch that as a bigger project. In an agency, you're the subject matter expert. You need to come in with like, this is going to work versus this might work. I need you to put in like several bets of like, this could or could not work. And startups, that's a whole nother story. That's different from typical in-house. And for like a startup, is anything goes, right? You have to
Right.
grow. you figure out how to get the resources, and if it makes sense, we'll throw some money at it and see, like, if I put $1 in, will I get $2 back? And if it does, we just keep playing that game.
Right. Now, of course, you had worn different hats, startups, agency, and now at a bigger company where you do in-house SEO. How has the field of SEO changed since you started your career, and what do you think are the most significant shifts you have seen?
I think the biggest shift is just how complicated search is now at this point. In the beginning, in my SEO career, most of us would just be like, SEO is just working on Google. As I've progressed through the years, maybe it's the upcoming of App Store optimization, which is now its own thing, right? Maybe it's e-commerce SEO, where right now you're seeing all these AI inclusions of how Google wants to shape product searches to really compete against, at least in the US, Amazon, where
Right.
a lot of people go to Amazon to do those searches. Again, Amazon search optimizations is its own thing, A9,
Right.
which is the name of their search engine. And likewise, for some people, it's like, oh, actually, we're listed on Walmart's, which is another major e-commerce and retail store in the United States. They have their own search as well, site search, and there are ways to optimize for that. Same thing with eBay, same thing with all these, even like WordPress plugins. Those things have their own ranking factors. And if you're a developer on that, there's an element of SEO in there. So when you're saying, like, how is it different now versus then, it's so fragmented. And there's a specialization in there that isn't fully transferable. Or you're like, oh, I can just add keywords to this page and it'll work. Or like, oh, maybe this search engine isn't quite there yet with um, using vector embeddings to figure out like relevance for keywords. They're still using, the count of keywords and some other weights. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of differences and nuances where some things are transferable, some things are just totally different. And having a subject matter expert on that vertical of search is the way to go, versus back then it's like, oh, you're an SEO, you can do everything.
Right. Now, let's talk about the current state of SEO. What do you believe are the most crucial factors for success in SEO today?
I would say this is a great question. Personally, there's this old saying where you want to be where your customers will be. And right now, with AI overviews, with LLMs and chat, we are seeing a shift in searcher behavior and their preferences. And search will have to evolve again to understand what that looks like. That's one shift, where you want to be where those people will be in the future. And we're in the early stages of that. And therefore, it's really hard to say this is the way to optimize for artificial intelligence generated results. That being said, that's one. The other thing that is harder to do now is attribution, right? So that's always been getting harder ever since, the old days of keyword not provided. In paid search, you can always see the keywords that drive that end sale. In organic search, the page, but it's a topic or a plethora of keywords, and you roughly know where that is. As you go into AI generated results, a lot of times the user is going from conversational searches, which is very informational, and then they may be able to reach a conclusion and decide, like, this is what I want to do. And that, you're going to see a lot of brands show up being mentioned left and right. And that's still optimizations you did to try to surface that to show up in an AI result, right? But those have no clicks. So all that work you're doing is really more like brand marketing, where your brand is mentioned. And you need several mentions to make that searcher feel like, oh, this is a brand. Back in my P&G days, we like to call it big and popular. So it feels safe when you are following the crowd, when you are inundated with all these options to look for. And when you're uncertain with all your options in this world, that's the paradox of choice, right? You'd rather go with something safe than when you're given 100 different options than you are to say, like, I'm going to find that one that is perfect for me. Actually, I'd rather choose the one that, 4 out of 5 dentists recommend. And that's the reason why, for a lot of these dental ads, Procter & Gamble really pushes that. It's like, what do you trust? What is this claim that I can back legally? And how do I have people choose that default where they feel safe when they have so much information and options where they default back to what's safe?
So with all these changes, how has approach of HubSpot changed towards the SEO A and B? Have you seen shift in, because I think the more in, as you said, of course, the informational keywords are the one which got the traffic based on those is the one which got hit more because of this AI overviews. So how do you see, are you seeing that at HubSpot, and how are you doing things differently now, or are you doing things differently?
So currently, I think I'm not doing anything differently yet. And the yet is because we have to see where things are moving, including where customers or searchers are moving towards. I think the telling thing for me as a father of kids and the partner of my wife who also uses search, like, I know for a fact the way I search is abnormal, right? And then I know the way that other people search are kind of weird, and I kind of judge them, but that's the normal way a lot of people search, right?
Right,
And
right.
when you look at that, you're like, oh, AI overviews can hallucinate or whatever. And it's like, no, these people don't want to click on websites. They like seeing where things are. Um, and sometimes they dig deeper, sometimes they don't, right? And the question for me is really, is that a ship that has sailed and that will stay there? And if so, I need to adapt with that as well. Or is that something where the people that actually control the money and will spend, they're stubborn like me and they aren't changing, right? So if it's a bunch of college students that are doing that shift and you're in the educational space, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Right.
If you're like in B2B SaaS and the buying center is a bunch of executives, maybe in their 40s or 50s, that might be a different story because maybe they aren't as big of a fan on AI overviews. Maybe they haven't won that over. There's a whole subsection of people on the web right now that are appending a parameter. I forgot what the exact parameter is, but right now in Google search, there is a web tab. And if you click on that, and do your searches there are no AI overviews. It's just almost like your traditional 10 blue links. And
Like,
some people are just loving it, especially the people that just hate having AI overviews in their search results.
so with Chat GPT launching their road search, have you started looking into it, or you still think it's too early?
I like to be a slow mover on tech things, but I like to also read about it. Because my experience has been when things are up in the air with a lot of variables, it's very easy to have what we call like shining object syndrome.
Right.
And I'm not a thought leader in this space where I need to go like, hey, this is how this could be a huge paradigm shift and everything we do changes.
Right.
What I can do, though, is really focus on the fundamentals of
Okay.
human behavior, right? Where is that going? And then thinking about how I can be more thoughtful about the content that gets created, right? So AI LLMs require scraping and indexing of content on the web. That's not
Right.
changing. So AI overviews kind of, again, because it's, or AI LLM results are kind of, as AI researchers like to say, it's they're a stochastic parrot, right? So it's more about probabilities of things showing up. So the fundamentals of that is if you're a marketer, you kind of already know this, and that is your brand needs to be out there everywhere, wherever you can find them, to be, going back to where we're just talking about, big and popular, right?
Right.
The fundamentals of that marketing actually hasn't changed, right? There's still an SEO element to it, which is, are these AI bots able to technically discover your content, and is that corpus of documents higher than, other places they're searching for content. And if it is, your chance of showing up as a brand increases. And that's just still really marketing if you think about it. Is your stuff everywhere around for all the people that care about it? So to really answer your questions, like, I'm following it, but I'm not like in the weeds going like, oh, this is how they're doing it technically. I can do that, but I also understand, like, if I focus on those fundamentals in search, I'm in a good position, right? I'll be optimizing for the search that is today, which is what I'm gold on today. And I'll be in a good position to win when AI Overviews rolls out to a larger audience because the fundamentals are solid for what I'm working on.
Right. Now, at HubSpot, you are dealing with SEO on a global scale, and I know you mentioned you have teams for different languages as well. Now, what unique challenges does international SEO present, and how do you approach them? So, just an example you gave for Mexican Spanish and European Spanish. How do you approach international SEO and the challenges?
Oh, yeah. Here's a fun anecdote that we've been vocalizing more frequently. One example is if you search for HubSpot right now.
Okay.
In some countries, such as in India and the United States, our homepage often does not rank number one. Our product page on our free CRM does. And so for a company that is very results driven, we're looking at, the amount of people that visit our pages and sign up to become a free customer, or they sign up to get a demo with one of our sales reps, which our salespeople, based off of the information they input, may reach out and say like, hey, one of our paid tiers is better fit for what you're trying to do, right? And when you default to a free product, that obviously hurts our whole business model, versus if you were to go to our homepage, really get our messaging and positioning and decide, hey, this is the right fit for a demo. And so that's an interesting challenge that we're seeing only in English speaking markets and only in specific countries. And it's interesting because part of it is user behavior that is different by country, right? Okay. And we saw this shift starting around July-ish, end of June, early July. And it was interesting because it started in India and then started to spread to like other English-speaking countries.
I just searched and I could see that you are right. The CRM page comes in, not the home page. I just searched while talking to you. You're right.
Yeah, and it's something that's actually happened before, and search engine roundtable or journal covered it, like Barry Short covered it one time ago. And it's one of those things where you're like, is this a user behavior change thing? Where if you search for HubSpot, really, I'm just thinking about your product because it's free and it's very popular. And versus, I'm actually looking for your whole brand and the suite of products that you offer because you're a platform. There's marketing, there's sales, there's service software. I'm not just looking for the CRM, right? And that's really interesting because, again, we need to factor in both how people are searching and clicking versus how a search engine we can send signals to it and say like, oh no, this is a branded search. The home page really needs to be on top, not one of our product pages. And it's interesting because that's like an SEO fundamental, right? You're like, oh, is your home page the most linked to page of all your sites? And the interesting thing about, as you were saying, like, how is it different doing things at a global scale, is as you get more specialized, different teams will prefer their navs to reflect kind of that user experience. So there was a point where the HubSpot blog, the navigation link, that logo linked to just itself, right? So it's a separate subdomain. And that's a lot of backlinks in because of how much content the HubSpot blog has.
Right.
So in a way, it was kind of separated from HubSpot.com in terms of internal linking.
Right.
And we have a lot more of those other subdomains run by different teams with different goals. And so again, as a signal to Google, figuring out, what is a site, or the pages of a site, what's the hierarchy of how things should be, we realized like, a lot of times we do these redesigns, but we don't really think about how these large properties may not seem like it rolls up to Google anymore, to one homepage. Google may treat these as several different websites or homepages, right? Just like how, and it's like in the case of the subfolder, which is CRM,
Right.
there was one time where that same SERP of just HubSpot was showing the product page, and it had organic site links, as you would see like for a homepage. And we're just like, it's like, that's not what we want, but we can see how the search engine might get confused because of how frequently we're linked to that page to rank better for free CRM, which is an important term for us. And we're just like, okay, it has to be some sort of balance, and we have to help really think about just these nav redesigns and how we link. So again, it's an interesting global challenge that's unique to HubSpot. We're still trying to sort this out. And there's no stone being left unturned to resolve this.
So this product thing, now the CRM page comes. So did you happen to try changing it by somehow? I mean, using an href lang, or you just let it be like that?
So we're trying to change this, and it's a work in progress. I think at its worst, our homepage actually disappeared from page one. Imagine that. And then it was just the product page in position one.
I would panic if my homepage doesn't rank. I would say, what kind of a penalty is this?
Of course, we went through that process, going like, okay, let's check Search Console. Is there a hidden message of any sort of penalty?
Right.
Is there someone flagging this? This was a tip from Rachel, forgetting her last name, that I met at Tech SEO Connect, and she was like, oh, there was this one time where our homepage disappeared because someone had flagged our homepage as having outdated content. And I was like, wait, that can, so if I don't see like a negative penalty on the homepage, it could be that. And it was one of those things where, if you see something on Google being weird, the tip is go check Bing, right? To see if it's a Google thing, or if it's a Bing thing, or is it both, right? In our case, I was like, no, it's a Google thing. We're like, all right, cool. Let's try to figure out what this Google thing is that's different from Bing. But again, there's a lot of different hypotheses on like whether it's user behavior or whether it's website fundamentals and internal linking, along with just other SEO ranking factors such as user experience.
I think user experience playing more important role here, of course.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because if you look at B2B software companies versus B2C, it's very different.
Right.
A lot of B2C software companies, if you look at their home pages, they're login pages. They're navigational.
Yes.
That is so different from
these have good content, right?
It's like no, these people are just navigating to log in. They're playing a different game. They've saturated the market, and they care more about retention than they do growing, more customers. So it's a different game.
One thing. So here is one thing. I had one of the client which had same problem. So he was, and we continued why the homepage is not ranking. We continued submitting it. Then eventually we realized somebody not from our team but from client team has actually blocked the homepage in the search console. So it was there, but in the search console, you can block the pages from indexing. So they have just blocked that page, and we said what? And we just unblocked the URL, and poof, in like 2 hours the rankings were back.
Was this the temporary removal tool that you're talking about? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. So that's the thing we looked at. We looked at, your robots.txt. But again, remember, this is region specific. And we looked at the geo-targeting removal. It's another weird thing that could happen. We're like, no, not there either. So as I said, we turned every stone we knew. There's a lot of really experienced SEOs at HubSpot, and I'm just one of many.
Right. So let's talk some positives now for the SEO in terms of, now can you share an example of an SEO strategy or a tactics that you have implemented at HubSpot that yielded particularly impressive results? And a recent one, please.
A recent one. So that's the fun thing. Recently I've been less focused on search and more in general on acquisition. And so what does that mean? That means I care more about, is it generating a bottom line for the business?
Right.
And the big one, and you can see this, is previously there was a disconnect between, well, I wouldn't say disconnect, but we just weren't tracking it on how our support teams were actually generating revenue for HubSpot as a business. So a lot of times you would think about like a knowledge base that could rank for keywords that are branded. In traditional SEO, you would just say like, hey, that's branded keywords. That's not like net new. These people are going to come anyways. So we're going to look at unbranded keywords. But no, actually, sometimes people look at branded search. They look at documentation. They want to be really sure what they're buying, it has the capabilities they care about. And just by adding a point of purchase there, like a sign up for free or a demo, we generated a lot of conversions from doing that. So a lot of times people kind of think like, oh, branded search, we're going to rank for that anyways. No, you can optimize for that. You should really think about that user journey and make it easy for that path of purchase. And it was a great thing we did because anecdotally, that service team and those tech writers, they're like, I'm sure we are doing something for the company. And anecdotally, we feel like it is, but they just didn't know how much that was. They didn't know the additional value they were doing in addition to, creating less tickets for the organization, using less hours from the support team because there was documentation out that people could self-serve, right? They could now then say, in addition to that, I'm actually generating revenue for HubSpot. So I think that's something, if you're working, on SEO, to not underestimate, which is like the value of a optimized knowledge base, and then having paths of conversions or disambiguations so that you get better quality fit customers versus someone who signs up and then eventually goes like, this was not what I was promised. It can't even do these things. It's like, oh, it's in the knowledge docs, and you knew exactly where you're getting to because it's all there very transparently. So I would say that's kind of the biggest win this year. One of the bigger ones. Another fun one is actually these login pages, which only works if you're at a certain scale. So a lot of people will search for brand plus login if they're a B2B SaaS company. We ran paid ads on just exactly that search. And traditional search theory would say that's a navigational search, right? There's no transactional intent. Our paid ads disprove that. There are people who are searching that and converting as customers and paying money on that. So with, working the paid thing, we're like, okay, that's very interesting. Let's dig in deeper. And we saw that some of our competitors on their login pages did also offer a point of conversion. And that was our cue saying, okay, we need to test this, test our assumptions on what we generally hold true in SEO and see if we could drive revenue, again, on a branded search, something we often take for granted. And we learned something from that. And I would say use your own judgment on testing this and see what the results are for you for doing this. So those are the two things I would share there. That's, on branded traffic that are very interesting and not as conventional as people would think about.
And I myself have not heard about them before. So I'll be honest, they are very different. And I think, yes, people should try that. Right. Now, in one of your past discussions, you talked about the intricacies of search intent. Could you elaborate on how understanding search intent has shifted in recent years?
Sure. There's a acronym that Google uses called NORA. No one right answer, I think, or something along those lines.
Okay.
And for a lot of head terms, you'll see in search results that there are a lot of different document types. By document types, I mean this could be a web page, this could be a news type, a blog article, an image pack, a local map. Different media types are better answering different intents of the user, right? If I'm discovering something, I'm trying to go somewhere, if I'm trying to purchase something to solve my problem, there's a lot of hints on what the possible user intents are to a query based off of the SERP feature that shows up. So that would be the biggest evolution from 10 blue links if you think about it, right? 10 blue links was just, these are websites. And now with no one right answer, it's maybe it's a head term, maybe it's a term you traditionally think it's transactional. There's now a lot more variety. It's like, do I want to buy by going to a product page, a third-party review site with stars on it as a rich product snippet, or am I going to watch that YouTube unboxing video or something that is also showing up, right? There's the intent, or what we like to often talk about is Clay Christensen's framework of jobs to be done. Of what is that searcher trying to do at the end of the day when they make that search? What is that job to be done? Are they just looking for information? But what's the information for? Like at the end of the day, what is that information for? Is it just because they're bored, which is sometimes a thing? Is it because they're a student and they have an assignment to have to finish? So it's research to finish writing a paper? Or are you a company employee that has to make a purchase decision on software? And you are one of 6 other people that have to make that decision. And what are the things you care about? Is it other companies, like case studies? So there's the keyword, and then there's all the other pieces of content you as a website would be able to provide them that would not be totally clear in that search query. And understanding that you need all those pieces of content to really satisfy that user's intent from their original search. That's your retail storefront, right? From a website. They go in, it's never always just the homepage, and from there you need to be able to be like, oh, that person actually needs a case study that they can then hand up to their boss. Do I have internal links that point to there? Does that article give enough for them to be more knowledgeable informationally about the subject matter, and for them to take the next step going like, actually, I really trust HubSpot after I read this? Or is that something that happens a month later and they see more of our articles elsewhere, where they do a much more refined search, maybe via LLM or in Google search, that they come across these other asset types that are much more conversion friendly than, what is a CRM?
Okay. Now, with the increasing importance of user experience in SEO, how do you see the relationship between SEO and other disciplines like UX design evolving?
I see them as a team that has to work together. There are decisions by other teams where sometimes they forget that a search engine is another user type they have to optimize for, right?
Okay.
And so we're the bot whisperers, if you want to call us that. Like, we know if visually this is what this looks like, but on the back end, this is the way you would have to write that so that a search engine would be able to see the content of it, right? So we're a team on that. And UX, all these like marketing, like legal, like everything, SEO can add value in any of those disciplines as long as we understand what the end goal or objective is.
So do you have your, as you said, the growth marketers are doing SEO. So do they look into the UX part as well now? The SXO is becoming a part of those team members' daily routines when they are optimizing a page?
So the way HubSpot is structured right now, we have people that own projects, right? And the lines within HubSpot are not as rigid as people might think. We align on solving for our customers, which is a saying we say a lot. And the end goal isn't to win as yourself in your own teams, in your own orgs. The end goal is for the customer to win so that HubSpot wins, right? So when you optimize for your company's results, you forget your customers, and then things go bad, right? A good example you see with is a lot of online websites with a lot of content that have to monetize with ads. And when you're monetizing and you're like, how do I make that number go up as an ROI? When you forget about the users, long term, you're going to suffer. But if you always focus on the users first and the monetization second, then you always have like this very solid foundation, right? So that's kind of how I explain, this cross-team collaboration, where if our user study groups have something, that's not something that is just shared within product. If we do a state of marketing research on where our customers think, that's not something that only that team hogs onto. That is shared wide. And being connected to all those teams, understanding the work they do, being able to then go like, hey, I could use this for the automation team to send to people that are in this segment, or hey, we have pages that compare different software solutions, and this is a statistic that would be good for this page, and it would help the customer there to make a decision. It's truly cross team and collaborative at HubSpot, and yeah, that basically answers kind of like how everything's different at HubSpot and why you focus on growth less so than say like, oh, you're just on search.
So when you say focus on growth, my question is that have you started using AI into what all processes while doing SEO? Is it content? Is it technical? Or you are just using it to analyze things? I know HubSpot has an AI tool writer as well, but do you incorporate it into your blogs? So are those blogs published through the AI or how?
So the specifics on how AI is being used on the HubSpot blog, I believe our blog team has their stance, and that's published somewhere. Maybe that's a link I could share with you at a later point. Personally, I like to use it as a thinking tool. So one of the prompts I like to just say is like, you are Socrates, right? And we're going to go through the Socratic method. And then this is the thing I'm working on. Try to poke holes by asking me questions on how I can make this better. Maybe it's a presentation I have to have, or maybe it's something that's going to executives, or maybe I have all the technical details down, but I need to summarize that into something succinct and more helpful. Those are very basic ways that we're using LLMs on just personal day-to-day things. When it comes to SEO, you can use it as like an empathy agent. So here's this topic. What are some things that, could be needed? And again, because it's statistical, it's just, what's the most likely word to come out. And so those are ideas, again, to help our writers be more empathetical, or at least myself, on what are things people could be looking to solve that problem. And those are just hints of like the keyword research you could do on a SERP. Traditional keyword research isn't going anywhere. So yeah, those are just very simple things you could do with AI LLMs right now. I'm not going to go too much into like vector embeddings and all those other things. I think that's just changing really crazily right now. There are people that are more technical than me that are finding the Google version of vector embeddings for passage indexing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am, right.
And so they found the library. Dijon SEO's been he's been sharing that, and I was like, everyone's like, all right, what is my similarity score on my content? How am I going to tweak it? Like, I get that, I see all that, I know that's where things could be going, and I'm a little bit afraid of that. right now because when it becomes very accessible to everyone and it can scale, then we are actually just a few steps away from spam. That's my personal opinion. Because if you think about it, if everyone can do it, they will, because it's the next shiny thing and it's so easy. You're just feeding into this machine, right? And it becomes the thing people worry about is this concept of hallway of mirrors, where you're just creating the same thing over and over and over and over because everyone just put in as like, that's the best answer, that's the best answer, that's the best answer. And that is the opposite of no one right answer, right? We want those different perspectives and all that. So I see that, I understand that's going on. I'm monitoring, as I said. I still think the fundamentals are important, but I'm not, as the idiom is, like, I'm not an ostrich and my head down on the floor, not looking around. I'm focused on what I do know, which is human behavior and fundamentals of search, of crawling and indexing, and how LLMs have the same fundamentals to, again, be in that right position for when this is a dominant user behavior and we need to be everywhere. What do we do then?
Right. Okay. Now, what is the role of backlinks you think now plays in the ranking? Is that still a factor? Are you guys actively doing that, or no, not actively pursuing?
Backlinks would just be PageRank, and PageRank is just still a ranking factor. So I think web graphs are the foundation of the web. And if you looked at the Yandex links, for those in the audience that didn't know, there was a leak of Yandex's ranking factors, and there was one period of time where there's like, oh, we're going to get rid of links as like a factor. We don't need it anymore. And then I was like, oh, no, actually we kind of do. All that kind of went on. I think there's still a place for links. I think there's still a place for nuance as well, of like, when do you need more backlinks versus when do you don't really need much more to rank. And I think there's different queries where it matters more than others. So if it's like a time sensitive trending search, there's not going to be much backlinks coming from it. There's going to be a lot of mentions on the web, right? And it's going to vary by region as well. Like where I'm from, the news websites don't ever backlink to their sources. They just reference it. And I was like, wait, how does that work? So there's definitely regionally differences. And I can't really speak for local SEO. I don't really work on that, right? So do backlinks still have a role? Yes. They still form kind of web graphs of relationships between documents and all that.
Right.
Are they less important? Depends on where you are in the world and how evolved search is. And should you still care about it? Does HubSpot still care about it? HubSpot still cares about it, right? Like, we're not one of those publishers that are like, oh, we will no follow links out unless it's like, sponsored or something. We're not going to be like, you're our competitor in the SERP. We're going to put a no follow on it because we don't want you to rank higher than us with more page rank. We're like, really? It defeats the whole thing. And you've got to keep the web a healthy web.
Right. Okay, we're gonna come. I know we just ran out of time, so this is just my final segment. I'm gonna have some rapid fire questions, so you tell me when you are ready.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, what's your go-to SEO tool that you can't live without?
Chrome DevTools.
Okay, if you could change one thing about Google algorithm, what would it be?
That is a great question. I would change HubSpot's ranking. Right? Just the homepage. I've been working on it with a lot of colleagues. It's on our mind.
Right. What's the best piece of career advice you have ever received?
You will always be able to find mentors in this industry as long as you ask for help.
Wow, that's good advice. Outside of work, what's a hobby or interest that you are passionate about?
My profile is actually kendo, which is Japanese sword fighting.
So you do that?
Yes.
Okay. So I saw your LinkedIn profile as well. So
Yes, it's been around for so long that I cannot remove it at this point.
okay, it's because I actually have to go and see in the YouTube. Is this guy for real? Right. Now, which of the LLM is your favorite right now, or the?
I don't have one, so no answer to that. No comment.
Okay.
They all have their use cases, but yeah. It's like,
No favorite.
would you choose like who your favorite child is? Come on. and they're all evolving too. So like,
Yeah. So yeah, I would choose my favorite child based on how they are growing. The youngest one might be favorite. Now, once they grow up, it will change. Just like LLMs, how they keep on coming with ChatGPT 4, Claude AI 3.5. So that way, right?
there is one that is up and interesting. Google is doing a experiment that's being I forgot what the URL is, like learn.google.something. It's a Google experiment, and it's their take on helping people learn topics.
Okay.
And the way they've done it is very clever and personalized. I will have to send you a link to that. It's very different, and it's on top of mind for me because my kids are using LLMs a lot to learn topics,
Okay.
and they will go so many levels deep that whenever they meet professionals in a specific field, they have very specific questions.
Okay.
Which is awesome in that, kids that have deeper understanding of subjects are just like smarter, and they're gonna be so much smarter than me in the future because of LLMs, because they're just not like doing surface level things. They're going very down deep. Like the other day was learning about zoonotic diseases, like diseases that transfer between animals and humans. And I was like, whoa, okay. How old are you again?
So two links you have to send. One for the blogs. You said the optimize that.
Yep. Blog policy on AI with HubSpot, and this interesting experiment that Google is doing.
Right. Now, very last question. If you weren't in the SEO, what career path do you think you might have pursued?
I would likely have been a starving artist doing some sort of clay sculpting or something. I lose time when I'm doing things that are creative. Lose track of time when I'm doing something creative.
Right.
Which fortunately, SEO allows you to be plenty creative too.
Yes. With so many things coming around, definitely we have to be. Right. Victor, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Your insights into the world of SEO are truly valuable. And of course, your insights into how HubSpot rankings and what all you have done are amazing. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners? Perhaps a final piece of advice or a resource you would recommend?
I would say you can be the change that you want to see. And if you're not doing that, right, then what you want to see just won't happen by chance, right? So take your reins on your own destiny, share that with the world, and the people that align with you will come to you. And that only happens if you say, that's what I want. It won't happen magically if nobody knows that those are the things you care about. So I want a kinder and gentler internet. After I say that, and I live that through what I do, the people that align with my values, that make my life and career happier, come towards me when I'm able to spread that word.
Right. So it's like aligning the universe in a way that it helps you and your thought process, right?
Yeah. And
all right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more deep dives with the industry expert. Once again, a big thank you to Victor Pan for joining us today. Until next time, keep optimizing.